Okay, today what I want to do is do a little basics on putting windows in buildings using the array tool. So first thing we're going to do, we'll set our units in our grid to 2000, changed minor to 12, major to 10. That way we've got good spacing for figuring out, or maybe even 20, every 20 feet, major grid line. Okay, so that means that all of our smaller grids are 1 foot and all of our bigger ones are 20 feet. Okay, and then of course we want to make sure that our units are all correct. We've got inches, all that looks good. Okay, so I'm going to go to a top view, zoom out, draw a rectangle starting at 0, and first length I'm going to do 100 feet, enter, 100 feet, enter. Okay, and then I'm going to go to a perspective view and turn shaded on, and then extrude this curve and I'm going to extrude it about 500 feet. So it looks kind of like a skyscraper. Okay. Now I'm going to draw a rectangle on that face. So I'm going to go to a front view and draw a rectangle with my snaps on, turn my nearest off, and go from endpoint to endpoint, back to perspective, and try to find that rectangle. And then I'm going to hide everything else, invert selection and hide objects, back to a front view. And so now I just have 2D curves that I'm dealing with. And I'm going to create an offset of 10 feet. And click on this and offset the whole rectangle inside. Then I'm going to go ahead and draw a window. So I'll do another rectangle from this corner. I'll turn on my grid snaps so it kind of locks me in a little bit here. About there. Turn my grid snaps off. And actually I should set those grid snaps to snap at bigger increments, because right now I think it's set to snap at like inches. But I'm not going to do that right now. Let me go back to my perspective view, and I'm going to extrude this curve back into the window about 4 feet. So I've got that recessed back into the building. And now I'm going to use the array tool from a front view. Type array, linear. Select my object, which will be this object, extrusion. And then I'm going to hit enter and select the number of them I want. I can always delete them later, so if I'm wrong, it's okay, I'll do 6. It's better to do more than too little. And then my first point of reference here, and I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. Okay, and now I'm going to do another array. This time with maybe 30 objects. And click up here and go straight down with my spacing selected as well. And you can see I've done too many, so I can delete as many of them as I want. Just select them and hit delete. Then I can delete this rectangle, and I've got a curve on here. I'm going to delete that curve. So now I'm just dealing with solids, and I can also delete this rectangle. And then I'm going to bring back my solid object, switch into perspective here. And of course you can do any shape window. You can also have added other geometry onto here, like maybe even extruding out a flower bed or something like that that you can array to, so that you can add some more details all at once. That's kind of the point of this exercise. This is very basic, but it gives you some tools that you can play with. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to mirror this onto the other sides of the object. So I'll go to a top view, and I'll select all of these, and type MI for mirror, enter, and go from my midpoint over here, drag past, and then click, and do it again. So I just hit enter to bring up the same command, and I'll go from this endpoint to that endpoint, and it should automatically flip it onto this side. Do it again, and then I'm going to go from this endpoint to this endpoint. Okay, and that worked because of the snaps I have on too, so keep that in mind. Now I'll go back to perspective, and I'll do a Boolean subtraction. So I can either type it or do Boolean difference. Click on the object I'd like to keep, enter, and go from left to right to select the objects on the interior, and then hit enter. And this is going to take a second. Matter of fact, I'm going to pause it. And we're back. Okay, so that took about 10 seconds for my computer. It might take longer for yours. All right, and then we've got some window cutouts here. And what I can also do here, if I want to be able to change the materials of the object, I can come in here and actually extract these surfaces. So in order to put materials on it, I'm going to have to extract surface and pretty much click on all of these, because you only want the interior surface, and if you go from left to right selection, it's going to be really a pain in the butt, because you're going to select all of these surfaces on the interior here too, so you don't want to make those glass. So you're going to select all of them and then hit enter. I wonder actually if I can go to a front view here and do extract surface again and go from left to right, if it will select the side ones too. I don't know. Let's see. So extract a bunch of them all at once. Let me go to perspective here. Yeah, it did. It selected all of them. So that's the problem with that, is now when you apply materials, you can apply them to the side ones too. But it's up to you. So now I can come into my render tools here and go to my materials and go to glass and apply it to the surfaces that I've cleared out. And you want to make sure with this glass, since you can see into the building and the building is empty inside because it's all kind of a facade, you come over here and you make sure that the reflectivity is turned up on that. And then I might do a different material, maybe granite on my object here. So you can see that the surfaces that were extracted are still separate. The rest of it looks like granite. And because the object is so large, we'll have to edit this granite with the tiling. We'll change that to maybe 100, tab 100, tab. And double check it. If there's a bump, which there's not, you got to change that too. So that's how you can differentiate surfaces. You can extract them and then apply the material to it. Once you're done, the easiest way to, after you've clicked on every single one of these surfaces to make them separate, you can put them on a different layer and then select the whole layer. So easiest way to do that is, well, or you can just left to right click and then copy and drag the materials onto your selection. But of course, if you've extracted too many surfaces, like the side surfaces, you're going to have glass on the sides of your building, and then it'll look a little funny. So that's how you would put materials on your building. Make sure that the reflectivity is up so you can't see into it. Another thing you can do is when you do your rendering, you can put an environment map on it too, so that it reflects like the sky or something. So if I go to settings for my render settings and choose an environment, maybe hemispherical. Okay. And then my material here, I can do advanced settings, textures, environment, choose. And then I'll search for well, you can include an image file. I can just do some kind of image here. And so when I go ahead and render that, it should reflect, if you put a sky in there, it should reflect that sky. So let's kind of get it into 3-point perspective here. So there you go, 3-point perspective. And I can just go ahead and go to my render properties, render by custom resolution. So I'm rendering larger, 19, 13. And remember, I can do 300 because my computer's relatively fast, but if you have problems with it, you can lower the DPI. You can even lower this to medium. And render. Oops. And you can see where I've applied the glass material to the interior of those windows, and so it looks a little funky. And you can turn down the intensity of the environment's reflection so that it doesn't look like that, so intense with the blues and stuff like that. But that should give you some, jumping off point for creating some architecture. Thank you.